As I prepare to embark on my last week with you, I can't help looking back at all that has transpired during our 23 years together. And it occurs to me that there have been so many moments when the Spirit, the Ruach, the Holy Spirit, the Pneumena, the breath of love has been present among us here in this place. Not in the tongues of fire sense as it is described in the book of Acts, but certainly in ways which have moved us, disturbed us, pushed us, and sometimes turned our well-intentioned plans upside down and inside out. One of the things that I've learned over these years is that we are pretty good at pointing to the actions of the Spirit. But when it comes to recognizing the Spirit in our lives, well, let's just say that the Spirit would need tongues of fire to get most 21st century mainline Christians to recognize the Spirit outside of the church. So, as it is Pentecost, I'd like to call out the Spirit. But don't panic, I'm not about to give up the habits of a lifetime and start acting like some Pentecostal preacher who has been slain in the Spirit. I'm not sure I could pull that off. It'd be fun to try, though, sometime. There's not going to be any speaking in tongues. The Spirit is clever enough to go easy on those of us who are among the frozen chosen, as they say. You see, one of the things that I've learned over the years is that when all is said and done, the role of a pastor is pretty basic. My role, my calling, my responsibility is very, very simple. My job is to recognize the sacred when and where the sacred can be seen, and then point it out to you. It's pretty basic. Recognize the mystery, which we call God, and then point out that mystery. Yes, there's all that complicated theology we learn, and then there's the technical hermeneutical skills for exegeting ancient texts, and Hebrew and the Greek and even the Latin, the homiletical techniques, the liturgical practices, the psychology, the pastoral approaches, not to mention the reality that every pastor must face at some point or another, and sometimes in this building it's more often than not, when the pastor has to recognize that my role is to fix the toilet. I sometimes wonder why they never taught us plumbing in seminary. I can still remember the Sunday after my ordination when I was preparing for my very first baptism, and I plugged the coffee pot in while the computer in the office was turned on, and all the power in the place went out. And there was no one like Neil or Bob or any of those go-to folks who could fix it. Just imagine the panic. It was my first Sunday as a freshly ordained pastor and my first baptism, and I had given strict instructions to the ushers to make sure the water was nice and warm for the font. Everything had been taken care of. No power. And every pastor is taught clearly, right, Eric? You can't have worship without coffee. And there was no way we were going to have coffee for all those guests. Fortunately, somebody showed up who knew. I didn't even know where the box was. I think that I christened my office with a lot of curse words that day. Where I come from in Belfast, there's a reason that they call people who wear a collar God botherers. Clergy are more than adept at cursing up a blue streak when we are not afraid. And we are not afraid to bother the mystery, the creator of all that is, was, and ever shall be, with our incessant ramblings. It's what we do, we God botherers. We bother. But bothering God is not my job. It's not what my job is all about. Not when you get right down to the heart of what I've been trying to do here all these many years. This God-botherer's job, my real job, is to recognize the sacred and point out the sacred to you in the hope that when the sacred shows up in your lives, you will recognize it as the sacred and be brave enough to name it as such. So on this Pentecost Sunday, let me do my job and point to the sacred and say, there it is, right there. Can you see it? Can you see the one which is beyond the beyond and beyond that also? The trouble is that so many God-botherers who have gone before us have made us believe, or at least given us the impression, that the sacred is a pretty rarefied thing, all dressed up in fancy words with lots of churchy stuff attached. Far too many people, they see the word God and they become sort of holier than thou. And most of us frozen, chosen types, we would never presume to point to anything in our lives, in our humble lives, and say, there it is, there is God, or the mystery, or the one that is divinity, the great I am, Yahweh, breath of love. The truth is, we are in God, and God is in us. Each and every day, each and every moment in time, we are held in the embrace of the love which is God. All around us, here, there, and everywhere, the breath of love caresses us. And if we just pause for but a moment, we can feel the Spirit's breath breathing in us. So please, for just a few moments, try to forget that you are in church, and those of you who are online, try to forget that you're trying to worship. Just breathe. In and out. Just breathe. Now come with me in your sacred imaginations, away from church, away from thoughts about worshiping. I'm traveling back in time to a place long, long ago when I was a child. I couldn't have been more than 4 or 5 years old. I was lying in the grass, looking up at the sky, when something happened. Something this preacher does not have words for. Something that let me know that I was connected with the sky, with the blades of grass, in a way to this day I cannot even begin to describe. It was just a few moments, but moments which have stayed with me for 60 years. Moments powerful enough to feed me even now. I see the blueness of the sky and the greens, the greens of those magnificent blades of grass, blades all together waving in the gentle winds which blew through my hair, my blonde hair at the time, caressing my scalp and tickling my fancy so much that I burst into laughter. My joy in the presence of the one which is my very source can still move me today. Now, fast forward with me. I'm 19 years old. I'm backpacking around Europe. We're in Copenhagen, and we're wandering around a gallery, the Carlsberg Glyptotek, and I am bored. I mean, when you're traveling in Europe, you see a lot of galleries, and after a while, they all blur into one. Especially when you were dreaming of adventures in Europe. Art galleries seem a little too tame. Anyway, I was looking for the exit when I came around a corner and was stopped dead in my tracks by Van Gogh's painting of Saint-Remy. It took my breath away. Never before had I seen such beauty on a canvas. I was mesmerized. I could feel, not see, but feel every brushstroke, every color. I was overwhelmed by the way in which the painting moved. Each blade of grass moved, the trees moved, the clouds in the sky moved. And for the first time in my life, I was in a painting, lying in the grass and looking up at Van Gogh's brush-stroked sky. I could feel it. I was connected to it, the wind, the sacred, the holy, the spirit, the breath of love. And I've spent years, decades, returning to that place, feeling the feels, trying desperately to find words to express this divine encounter with the one which is mystery. My desire to find words eventually, after many twists and turns, led me to seminary, where I was compelled to complete my clinical training in a hospital. It was there where I encountered the depths of the sacred. Imagine, if you will, a trembling, younger me standing in a hospital room with new parents. And I'm holding in my arms a stillborn baby, a little girl, not fully formed, whose lungs never drew breath. And we are engulfed in darkness, an incredible darkness, a beautiful darkness, a darkness so still. It was as if we weren't even breathing. A darkness of which we were so intimately connected. A soothing darkness which enfolded us all, and which enfolded most tenderly that mother and father. It was there and yet not there. It was everywhere. In that darkness, we felt the caress of mystery. In that darkness, we were given the strength to let go. Now, I wish I could explain to you what happened, but we'd be here all day, and I would still not find the words. So come with me now to a different place. It's a place I've taken you to before on a number of occasions. You're all familiar with it. Niagara Falls. And for our American friends, you need to come over to the Canadian side. The American side doesn't work. You have to come over to the Canadian side where you can stand at the top of the falls and watch the force of the water, actually feel the force of the water in motion just before it tumbles over that cliff. Now walk with me along the pathway to a spot where you can see the power and the majesty of the water as it falls, and feel the force, the power, as the water rushes down, 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 and the spray dampens your whole body, pulling you into that force, the power, the majesty of you know not what. It was in a moment just like this that I caught a glimpse of a tear on my beloved Carol's cheek. And it was just coming down her cheek. And in that tear, on the face of my beloved, I saw everything. I was not there, and yet I was everywhere. And everywhere was in me, and there was no distance between me and whatever it was, whatever it is that lies at the very heart of reality. Now, I could go on and on. My point is, so could each one of you. Each and every one of you has encountered the sacred over and over and over again in your lives. But far too many of us are not bold enough to recognize and to name the sacred. There are moments when we are exposed to the mystery which we have come to call God, and these moments expose us to the reality that we are in God and God is in us. Whether you call that God mystery or spirit, divinity, Father, Mother, Abba, Yahweh, Allah, Buddha, the Most High, Elohim, El Shaddai, Sophia, Shekinah, Adonai, holy or sacred, that mystery is love. Love beyond words. We are in love and love is in us. That's my job. To see it, to tell it, and to hope that each one of you will see it, name it, and speak it over and over again, because our world is desperately hungry for the love which is divinity. Amen.